Welcome in, folks. So happy you're here. We're just going to wait one more minute for everyone to get in. We'll kick things off at about 2 minutes after, maybe the later part of 2 minutes after. Welcome in for anyone just joining. Next time I got to coordinate my music, y'all. Get it together. All right. Doesn't look like we have very many people like actively joining right now. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to open the program by sharing that today's webinar event will be translated, and I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Omni to let everyone know how they can access this tool to hear the program in the language they need. Well, it's translated in Spanish. That's our only language today. Omni?
Yeah, James, if you can go to the next slide. Thanks, folks. Hola, disculpa por empezar en inglés antes de que hayamos presentado la interpretación. Hello, everyone. My name is Omni Romero. I am the Director of Care at Pride Foundation, and I'll be giving us a little bit of an overview on accessing interpretation during today's call. So Pride Foundation believes in language justice, and that includes offering interpretation over Zoom. If you are joining from a computer, in order to access interpretation today, what you'll do is look for a globe that is at the bottom of your screen, click that globe, and then select the language in which you would like to listen in and participate in today. If you're joining from a cell phone or a tablet, it's going to be a similar process. Just look for 3 little dots in the corner of your device, click those 3 dots, click where it says language interpretation, and then select the language in which you would like to listen in and participate in today. And I'm going to repeat these instructions in Spanish. If we go to the next slide. Así que buenas, gracias por unirse a la llamada de hoy. La Fundación de Pride cree en la justicia del lenguaje y eso incluye brindando interpretación a través de Zoom. Para poder unirse a la interpretación hoy, si se están uniendo a través de una computadora, lo que van a hacer es buscar el globo terráqueo que está al fondo de la pantalla y seleccionar ese globo y luego seleccionar el lenguaje en cual les gustaría escuchar y participar hoy. Si se están uniendo a través de algún otro aparato, lo que van a hacer es seleccionar los 3 puntitos que están en la esquina de su aparato y luego seleccionar donde dice interpretación de idiomas y luego seleccionar el lenguaje en cual le gustaría escuchar y participar hoy. Y nuestros 2 intérpretes de hoy son Flavia y Javi, así que gracias. Thank you to our 2 interpreters, Flavia and Javi, today. Thank you for being here. And with that, I'll pass the mic back.
Awesome. Thank you, Omni. Thank you, Javi and Flavia. So welcome to thank you for joining Pride Foundation's 2025 Year in Action. For those that don't know me, my name is Jamila Taylor, and I am the Director of Community Engagement and Communications for Pride Foundation, and I'll be guiding our conversation for today. In addition to Javi and Flavia, behind the scenes, we have members of the Community Engagement and Comms team, James Hoagland and Raquel Vincent, who are managing the presentation, and Steve Martin, who will be joining us to lead Q&A later in the program. I'm so excited and grateful that you all have joined us today. I think that we can all agree that 2025 is already shaping up to be rigorous, and will require us to fully tap into the fortitude, courage, care, and joy we've always shown to our community. And will be necessary for us to make it through this year, and I'm sure the many challenges in years that follow. So our program is scheduled today for an hour and 15 minutes, and we'll be talking briefly about the accomplishments of 2024, as well as, and that will be delivered by my leadership team colleagues, Omni and Ira Wade. And we'll also, more importantly, be talking about our responsiveness plan for 2025 and beyond, and that will be delivered by our CEO, Katie Carter. Before we get into the meat of the program, I want us to kick off things with a question, kind of like an icebreaker question, to just take a pulse and see how we're feeling across our region. Next slide, James, if you will. We're asking the question, can you be who you are where you are? And the poll is up, and if you all could be responsive and just give us a choice, a selection. And in just a second, we'll give it a minute and we'll share all the responses, kind of like an aggregate of all the responses. Thank you for everyone who has joined us. More recently, we're doing a poll. Can you be who you are, where you are? All right, responses are in. Woo! 61% of us feel like we can be who we are, where we are. 1% says no, and 38% says sometimes, which means that we got a little bit of work to do. I think that this shows that we've done a lot of really good work across the Northwest. We definitely know there's still work to do. And it's good because this question is really on our homepage, and I feel like it's important for us to take a pulse periodically to see if the work we're doing is moving us in the direction that we intended to do. So thank you all for your responses there. I'm going to be moving us into the next segment of our program, where you'll hear from me and my PF leadership team members, and about all the ways that we've been active within our different departments this last year. Community engagement and comms is responsible for resource mobilization, which is raising resources to make sure that we can meet the needs of our community across the region, that we can pick up shortfalls in grant funding, et cetera. And we do this through vibrant campaigns, engaging in fundraising events, and community education. A lot of what you didn't see from my team last year was really setting up a lot of infrastructure for a number of projects that we intend to do this year. We hired a new, excuse me, comms manager. And as you can see, we've been sharing, and we're able to share a lot more comprehensive information about the work that we're doing across the organization. But overall, the CE and comms team, excuse me, had 3 major projects last year. We did the community engagement, excuse me, survey. We hosted our season of Tend, and we hosted the season of Gratitude in Action, which we just closed about mid-January. I want to thank everyone who is on this call and who responded to our community engagement survey. We learned a lot about our community during this survey. We had 189 responses, and we learned that about 31 plus individuals are college graduates or graduated from graduate school, which means that you all know what it's like to go to school and need the resources and support to thrive there. We also learned that 20% of our community identified as transgender or non-gender conforming, which means there's a lot of opportunity there to connect with more folks across our region, because we know that there's likely more than just 20% representation in our community. But I think the thing our team found most interesting is in the next couple of slides where we asked the question, what motivated your first gift? And I won't read them all, but I'll say that we came to Pride Foundation for a variety of reasons. We wanted to demand justice. We wanted to learn, we wanted to help scholars. We wanted to increase the visibility and security of LGBTQ plus people. We came because our children needed safety and resources. And we're so happy that you're here for whatever reason you arrived to join Pride Foundation in any way that you are with us. We appreciate that. So we can move to our season of Tend slide. Season of Tend Tend in general is really about tending to our community. And our 2024 season of Tend, in that year, we hosted 5 events in person across the region, every state that we represent. So Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, and Alaska. And in that, we hosted 400 in-person individuals. We can move to the 10 slide, James. We had 400 individuals join us in person. And a number that I'm really excited about and very proud of is that we were able to redistribute $70,000 plus back into our community through vendors and partners and contracts that were businesses owned by LGBTQ individuals or contractors. So we were really able to like redistribute the money back into our community, and I'm hoping that we can do that even more this year. We also raised $270,000 in unrestricted support for our community. And we're really, really proud of that number. It doesn't include, that was just dedicated to Tend. And so I'm so thankful to our community partners who helped us get there. And then at the end of the year, we hosted our season of gratitude and action. And this is where you have recently seen our gratitude report come to you. We did our end of year recap where we shared some really, we highlighted some individuals in our community who are doing amazing work. And in our season of gratitude and action, you all really, really showed out. Between October and mid-January, we received 231 donations because of you, and we were able to reactivate 40 donors who hadn't been in connection with us for over a year. We gained 17 new donors, and the best part is that you all helped us meet and exceed our goal of raising over $200,000 in unrestricted donations. Now, there's other ongoing fundraising happening across the region that is more restricted, but overall, in unrestricted dollars, community engagement and comms raised $1,438,816 that helps us be more innovative in our programming. So I hope that you all give yourselves a round of applause, a pat on the back. You did an amazing job. And this is a guiltless plug I want to put out there. I hope you all join us for our 40th anniversary to celebrate Pride Foundation and all the work we've done throughout the years, 4 decades long. I'll hand the mic over to Ira Wade, our programs director, to share more about grants and scholarships. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamila. Hey, everybody. What is it? Afternoon, I think. What is time? I don't know if people are moving my slides or if I'm moving the slides. James, are you moving the slides?
I'm moving them for you. Yep.
Okay, cool. So my name's Ira Wade Harris, pronouns they, them, theirs, he, him, his. I am the director of programs, and for those that aren't or may not be familiar with it, underneath the umbrella of programs is our community grants as well as our scholarship program. Additionally, I'll be talking a little bit later about our youth initiative. So we do have a couple of new initiatives that are coming or have come down the pipeline in the past year. So I'll be chatting with you about that as well. And we can move to the next slide. So again, for those who may or may not be familiar with our community grants, we'll start there and then talk about scholarships in a bit. We do have a solid focus on priorities that we stabilized this year, just to make sure that we were working really well and closely in supporting funding priority communities and folks that are working on in priority issue areas. So we are working currently with Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, BIPOC, and then trans and gender nonconforming led and centered organizations to make sure that they are able to provide resources to our communities, but also have that level of representation as well. And then additionally, we're working with organizations that work at the intersection of particular different, again, priority issues, geographies, and then making sure that we're supporting people in a multidimensional way. And that's one of the reasons that we have our Ask for What You Need initiative, so we can get a better sense of, what is going on, what are you trying to pay for, and making sure that we're doing it in an unrestricted way, because organizations know themselves and their communities better than we do. We're not on the ground like that, so we're making sure that we're funding people based on what they say they need instead of us funding on what we assume they need. Next slide. Additionally, with that, we try really hard to fund smaller grassroots organizations. They're meeting the needs in a lot of, specifically what we're focusing on is like meeting the needs of folks in rural areas, and making sure that like that isolation that they might feel is filled by the resources that we provide. And again, other people are providing resources to them as well. But we wanted to highlight that we recognize. Okay, I'm seeing slow down. We wanted to highlight and recognize that rural areas need to continue to be a space that we fund, understanding that they are experiencing unique barriers that they, will tell us about through different surveys and different initiatives that we push forward. But with all of our grant making, we wanted to make sure that we continue to have a low barrier application process. We have continued to refine, like, what does it mean to access us? So even if you don't get funding, like, we will have a conversation with you about what can make your application stronger. What exactly are we looking for? Did it follow like the different priorities that we said we had built out? And then again, practicing our role in trust-based philanthropy, and that kind of counts over to the Ask for What You Need component of the work that we do. That doesn't mean you're gonna get everything you ask for, but at least we will try to understand, what you're working towards in general. But again, with the unrestricted funds, typically the low barrier access with the applications and access with communication with us. That's something that we're trying to continue to move forward when it comes to getting grantees and applicants to understand that we trust y'all to do the work that y'all say you're going to do for the community. And we want that reciprocity of them trusting us to try to do our work to the best of our abilities. Next slide. So this last year was pretty momentous. We've done some historical things that, or groundbreaking things that we haven't done in the past. So one of the things that I wanted to let y'all know about is that we have moved over to multi-year grants. Those multi-year grants are 2 years and 3 years. And as you can see in the presentation, it kind of runs the gamut of what the averages of what we've been able to move out the door, but we've made it very clear to ourselves internally that we don't want to fund below $6,000. And so if you look to the right side of the slide, you can see that our 3-year grant awards, the average was around $11,000. The 2-year grant awards was around $6,000, but we were able to get to an overall average of around like approximately $9,000. So this last cycle, we had 192 applications. That's the most that we've received in Pride Foundation history. We had done proactive grants for the 3-year grant the grant making, and we did open applications for the 2-year grant making. So we had selected 64 organizations for that proactive grants. 256 were considered. And then additionally, we were still, like I said before, able to increase our overall grant size from previous years, which was around $8,000. Next slide. Now, when it comes to the awards, we ended up giving out 106, giving out money to 106 grantees. That was around, or it was $1 million for last year, which was amazing. So again, we gave out those grants to 64 organizations. They get that money up until 2026. That it ends up being like a $2 million investment in those groups. And one of the reasons, let me back up, one of the reasons that we ended up moving towards a multi-year granting approach was to make sure that our organizations had a sense of sustainability, like understanding that you will get that money coming through the door the next year or within the next 2 years. So it helps them strategically plan how they might move forward, understanding that receiving dollars is not in limbo from Pride Foundation. We gave 42 organizations 2-year grants, and that was pretty much like a little over $500,000 for both years. So overall, with the 2 and the 3-year grants, Pride Foundation has made a $2.7 million investment in ensuring the sustainability of organizations for 2 or 3 years, at least with understanding that they will be receiving our funding. Next slide. And then looking forward to the future, our year in action instead of the year in review, we're looking at building out capacity support beyond the check. So offering different webinars to support grantees with different things that they might be interested in learning or skills they might be hoping to build. One of the reasons that we're moving forward with this approach is to make sure that we're using our funding to the best of our abilities. And so even if we can't fund people more money or money in general, everybody's going to be welcome to come to these capacity building webinars to learn more about operations or fundraising or mental health. Like it will absolutely run the gamut, but we wanted to move with this approach because we wanted to make sure that even if we weren't able to fund, even if we weren't able to fund certain people to a certain amount, they will be able to get something from us to help support the ways that they're running their organization. I am running a little bit over time, so I might kind of have to speed through it, or I'm happy to answer any questions later. So additionally, we're going to be just deepening responsive funding strategies, not only because we, want to have responsive funding or funding in between those years around like multi-year granting, but understanding the socio-political landscape coming up, we need to kind of figure out, and we'll be figuring out, what does it mean to move those emergency funds out the door. And then lastly, we're looking at evaluation and exploration, just again to make sure that we're not operating on a sense of assumption, but that the directions that we move are community driven. Next slide, if there is one. Okay, sorry to have to do this in real time, but folks that are helping us run the show, what do y'all want to do about time? Keep going?
Let's keep going. And where you can move forward, move forward.
Okay, sounds great. So now we're going to move over to the scholarship program, and that's our arm that funds our scholars who there's no age rank on it. There's no certain scale of school that you need to be in. We just need to make sure that like our students or our scholars, our applicants are understanding that you can apply if you identify as a leader. And we identify a leader not necessarily just in like that traditional sense, but mainly are you a leader in your own life, with your family, with your communities, your field of study, where you work, and in any location within our movement. So our eligibility is very, very wide. Next slide. So much like community grants, we have our priorities as well when we build out our rubric and try to figure out who to end up selecting. So making sure that we're moving resources to our LGBTQ plus students who need it the most, who are experiencing particular types of barriers. But overall, they just need to demonstrate a commitment to advancing justice, whether or not that's in the well-being of themselves, their community, and we're not looking at like what time frame they did it. It can kind of run from past all the way to aspirations in the future. Next slide. Additionally, I talked a little bit about barriers as well. And so we do take a look at whether or not people have experienced rejection from their family, if they have a support system at all, and any type of systemic barriers that they have experienced when it comes to oppression. Next slide. So let's talk about the money. So our last review cycle was 1,048 applications. That was a record as well. So our process involves volunteer reviewers, and we had 65 this year. They reviewed applications for 60 or more scholarship funds that we have. In this process, we ended up awarding $805,000, and much like community grants, moving to multi-year granting, we are trying or did start the pilot for multi-year awards for the scholars. So we started small and we're trying to scale up, but we started with 10 scholars awarded $10,000 a year up until completion. So we're not like, oh, 4 years. When they finish, they can stop getting the money. And then additionally, we funded 2 scholars with multi-year awards at the amount of $15,000 a year apiece. And if you look at if you looked at the word cloud, you can see what the students were majoring in. This cycle, a lot of students, as you can see, majored in social work. Next slide. Well, it just says scholarship building. I don't know what to do with that one. Next slide. Okay, there we go. So moving towards in the future, we're also going to be doing scholarship support beyond the check, helping people figure out like student resources and financial aid and career development and things like that. So that'll be a webinar series as well. We're also building out our emergency funding and trying to figure out what is it that students need when they're kind of in a bind. So we don't fully have that strategy built out yet, but it is absolutely coming because we know students need different things beyond just what we end up awarding them. Building relationships within our ecosystem. So like, not just finding facilitators and stuff, but like connecting with GSAs and queer resource centers and just different people like in our ecosystem to make sure that we're able to be supported and or informed with that capacity building that we want to offer in the future. Leadership building, that kind of goes into the capacity building beyond the check. And we are going to be asking the scholars, like, what is it that you need in order to feel like you get to sustain what it looks like to be a leader for you in whatever context that makes sense. And then we're going to continue scaling up the multi-year scholarships. That's it. Thanks, y'all. I'll be back though.
Hey folks, for folks that joined after our introduction, my name is Omni Romero. I use they and them and AA pronouns. I'm the Director of Community Advocacy Research and Education at the Pride Foundation. This is Pride's newest department. And this is our department dedicated to really doing cultural work. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see our overview of this department. So Pride Foundation's Care Department supports LGBTQ plus cultural workers and community organizing efforts to celebrate and sustain the historical and future sexual and gender diversity of the Northwest and beyond in our movements towards justice, right? So we're working with individuals as well as movements And on the right here, you'll see an image from one of my favorite actions in Montana last year, where we had a banner that was saying, "Trans people will live forever." Next slide. Pride Foundation's care department consists of 2 programs. The first program is our founding program, and this is the Transform Culture program. This program exists because trans people asked for it. There was an anti-trans bill in Washington state, and community members organized to defeat that bill, and we did in 2016. And as a result of that work, we knew that we needed to create a movement that would be able to support change into the future. And so we've been doing that. And now we have a program that consists of projects to support those efforts. Our main project within the Transform Culture program is our fellowship. This is a fellowship available to 10 BIPOC, Two-Spirit, trans, non-binary, and intersex individuals in Alaska, Idaho, Montana, Oregon, and Washington, 2 per state. You get 15,000 at the start of the year before any of the work actually begins, because we're not trying to evaluate you. We're here to do work together, right? And so you join this fellowship, and then you become a part of a network of other trans, non-binary, and intersex people working to create change. The application for our fellowship goes live March 31st. This last year has been our first year of our cohort, and you can see our inaugural cohort members, the majority of them, in this photo here on the right. And because we don't want to just do a fellowship and then kick people to the curb, we have an alumni project, which is launching with the graduation of this cohort this year, where people who graduate will be brought back to come and give trainings to future cohorts and to also support our broader mission. And this is just an opportunity to continue to invest in individuals, right? And beyond that, we do broader narrative promotion work, like supporting the banner that I just shared with y'all on that previous slide, and other things that just go to highlight our gender diversity in the Northwest. So this is our program, which is unapologetically dedicated to BIPOC trans people, right? That's what this program is dedicated to, and that's not going to change, at least not while I'm here. Now, on the next slide, you'll learn about our next program, which is called the Northwest Organizing and Wellbeing Program. This is our program dedicated to our broader LGBTQ+ community. And so within this program, we have a variety of projects that we've been launching to support us with organizing across the Northwest and increasing the well-being of our community. These include our Seedlings webinar series, which we launched last year. We brought Dr. Emma Aziz, Black Belt Trans PhD, to come and give us a training. And so he did that in August. And we have our next 2 webinars scheduled for March and April. In March, we're bringing Erin Reed to talk about trans advocacy. And in April, we're bringing Dr. Aziz back to give us another training on safety right before Pride season starts this summer. Beyond that, we're launching other projects. Our Defending Defenders project, where we are supporting organizers who have been doxxed. Stay tuned for more updates about that. We're also launching a displacement survey, where we are going to be working on studying and finding ways to support our new neighbors, LGBTQ+ folks from around the country who have been displaced, who are moving to the Northwest for the protections available here. And so we're working with folks on that. And we'll be launching some action centers using some software to increase opportunities for our community to engage in advocacy. And if anyone has any questions about our work, please send me an email at omni@pridefoundation.org. And remember to stay focused, stay vigilant, and to take care of yourselves. And with that, I'll pass the mic back.
So for our next segment, Omni, we had a next, we were going to talk about our youth initiative, but we decided that we're gonna, in the moment, table that for maybe another call, or maybe a digital blog post where we share out more, but just because of time, we're going to move forward to the next segment, past the Washington Youth Initiative, to our poll. So, and I know you're leading that, so thank you.
Yeah, so I'm back.
Yeah.
I know y'all missed me for those few seconds, but now I'm going to lead us through an exercise, right? Because your voice, your story, your experience matters to us. We need your story for our strategy. And so one of the things that we are doing during our call today is going to be asking y'all some questions. So this is an experiment for us. I'm going to share my screen, and you will be able to see a Mentimeter slide pop up right now. And on this slide, there's a question for you. And so I have a few slides with questions, and how we're going to do this is that you will log in using your phone or the computer that you're on by going to menti.com and entering the code that you see on your screen, or you can scan this QR code so that you can access our poll. So I'm going to give y'all a few seconds to do that. And go to menti.com and enter that code or scan the QR code. And I am going to start asking some questions. So the first one is, what changes have you made or do you anticipate making to your programming and organizing? Now, this can be since November 2024, or in general, things that you already had planned for this year. But we want to know what you're thinking for the future. And as folks are responding, we'll be able to see some of their responses on the screen here. And I'll read them out loud for our interpreters to make sure that they're interpreted in Spanish. So we have a focus on safety as a anticipated change or established change, holding executives accountable. I'm seeing intersectionality, leaning into that, finding deep support for rural communities, serving more people, increasing funding, cultural humility, louder affirmation. Yes, doubling down on our existence. Radical joy. Yes, yes.
Awesome. These are awesome.
And so for folks that are seeing this, the more that a particular response is shared, the bigger the word is. So we can see here that more folks have been saying capacity building, right? That y'all are not shying away from the work. Y'all are trying to increase your capacity to keep doing the necessary work that we need to do. Let's go to our next questions. What opportunities for positive change do you see in your area? What opportunities for positive change do you see in your area? Now, this might be in your neighborhood, right? Or it could be in your community, right? Spread out across various neighborhoods. Opportunities for positive change. Visibility, more community spaces, yes. Mutual aid, especially now during the winter amidst so much environmental crisis. You know, we need to know who our neighbors are, right? We need to know who our neighbors are so that we can support each other. I'm seeing strong coalitions and this focus on joy. As y'all might start to see across these, joy is a strategy. It's a strategy. It's also a tactic. So continued existence, that is definitely an opportunity for positive change. Increased activism, support for trans kiddos, more invested people, right? Yes, yes. And I'll just bring us back to focusing more on joy. Let's ask another question. What skills are you looking to enhance or learn for the work ahead, right? What are some skills you are looking to learn or enhance for the work ahead? It could be fundraising or maybe something broader, right? Hope. Hope is a skill. That's something that we can learn, that we can share. What are some skills? More political advocacy. Yes. Fundraising, how to be a better ally. Providing testimony. Yes. And our care department can definitely help you with that. The art of persuasion. Ooh, yes. That could make a good seedlings webinar. Legal processes. Yes. We're working on putting together some resource lists for y'all. Katie will share some more about our responsive planning in a few moments. Coalition building. Yes. Working across state lines, right? We need that. Holding space for joy. Yes. Like we said, that's a skill that we can learn. How do we work that in? Self-preservation, avoiding burnout. Yes, we need y'all to stick with us in this movement. And we want it to be worth your time and to earn your continued participation. Thank you. Keep adding these in as we're going. Earned income revenue. Yes, I'm seeing some specific items here too. Becoming bilingual. We have some emergent ideas around that we'll be sharing in the future as well. Stay tuned for some more public language justice opportunities. And inter-program building. I love this. Now we have one more question, a couple more questions. Maybe this will be, depending on time, we'll see where we land. But we want to ask y'all, what do you want donors and the philanthropic sector to understand about your situation right now, right? What do you want donors in the philanthropic sector to understand about your situation right now? Maybe there's a specific problem that's emerged, general needs that you're seeing, changes that you hope will happen in the sector. Yeah. We're getting some responses here. People are in crisis. Our people are in crisis, right? We need you to be loud, right? As these crises are ongoing, we need our people to be loud. We need philanthropy to be loud. Operational funding, that general operation support, that trust-based philanthropy, yes. We want philanthropy to know that the need persists, that this work takes time. Yes, and that's why we're so excited, like Ira Wade shared, that we're doing multi-year funding, right? We're hearing that, and at Pride Foundation, we're responding, and we know that the sector needs to hear this as well. So thank you for sharing that. And also sharing that, oh, I love this. I think that this is a good one here, that we all benefit from queer joy, that we all benefit from queer joy. Right. And I think that that's going to be a necessary strategy for us moving forward, right? That this work is for the benefit of everyone, not just LGBTQ plus people. And so our final question, just to close us out here, and feel free to keep sharing. If your success was completely guaranteed, what bold steps would you take into the future? If you would have the resources, the people power, the trust, what are some bold steps that you would take? Run for political office. Yes. We need more representation. expanding our programs, an LGBTQ community center, hire more staff, right? Grow our movement, invest in the community, invest in yourself. Open more programs, find peer support, create more endowments, which is to say, to create hope for the future, right? Challenge loudly. Yes. Write so many queer books. I absolutely love that. Definitely for the folks that are interested in storytelling, that's the main piece of our work in care. So for all the folks interested in narrative work, please reach out. Yes, help all to become leaders. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to leave this open, and folks can keep adding these in here while we continue with our program and start sharing some more about what our plan for the future is as we continue to learn about what some of your hopes for the future are. Thank you all for your responses, and we are listening, and we are going to learn from what you all have shared with us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Omni. I don't know about anyone else, but I definitely felt like I needed that segment of our program. It was so grounding. We're going to talk about our responsive activities next, and that's going to be led by Katie.
Hello, everybody. I always miss being in spaces with you all, but I look through all the names on this call and I feel like I'm there with you in the room. So I just wanted to say first, hello. I'm Katie Carter. I use she and her pronouns. I'm the CEO of Pride Foundation. And I want to talk a little bit with y'all today about what our responsive activities are going to be this year. We specifically are calling this our year in action because we are not sitting by the sidelines this year. We are not doing business as usual. We are moving forward with both our strategic plan, but also a set of new and complementary actions that we're taking to better support our community with all the things that are unfolding. I also just wanted to invite folks, if you haven't found the Q&A button down at the bottom of your screen, if you have questions, please go ahead and put them in there. As soon as I'm done sharing this part, we're going to do a little Q&A. And you can add your questions in there and we will answer them for everyone. We have turned off the chat for this just for the safety of our community because these are the times we're living in, y'all. So we can go to the next slide. So I'm going to start off with some hard things and then we're going to go into what we're going to do about them. But we know, I don't have to tell anybody on this call, we have all been getting the notifications, reading the news, experiencing what we knew was coming with the inauguration this week and the changes and the executive orders that are happening. We know that LGBTQ plus people, in particular, trans people and gender diverse people, are going to be targets under this administration. And we have already been in the midst of a really profound moment of backlash, and that's not changing in 2025. I sincerely wish it were. We are anticipating federal bans on things like gender affirming care and trans people participating in sports. We know we've already been seeing the targeting of immigrants for deportation and targeting LGBTQ plus people and communities and organizations. We know that there's going to be targeting of the nonprofit status of many organizations, which we're hoping is going to be moved from this year to hopefully a year, not a year in the future, because of a lot of organizing that got introduced when this was brought up last year during the last session. We have already seen a profound increase of anti-LGBTQ plus legislation nationally and here in our own region in Montana and Idaho in particular. We know that there's going to be the ending of DEI initiatives and restrictions on the right to protest. This isn't even remotely a comprehensive list of what we know is coming. And I just wanted to give us a grounding moment of the reality that we know that we're facing. We can go to the next slide. And we know that LGBTQ plus people and organizations in this moment are going to really need a unique level of support. They're going to need our community and need one another to show up this year, doing things like technical and financial assistance to support updating ID documents and accessing healthcare and all of the things that should be not things that people have to get technical and financial support to do, but we know we are in a crisis moment. We know that many people are having to leave their home communities for safety and move to places where they can access resources and community and where they're not criminalized. And this is so deeply important to Pride Foundation, as core to our mission as we started this call out, that people should be able to be who they are, where they are. And we know that that is not the reality that we are facing this year. We know that safety and security planning is going to be really important for LGBTQ plus people and organizations, as well as financial support because of the funding cuts that are coming. And we know that our communities are going to show up for one another, and there's going to be increased programming and more supports being offered, more legal and advocacy efforts to be able to fight back against what's happening for our communities. These are just some, again, not a comprehensive list of what we are anticipating our community is going to need from Pride Foundation, from one another this year. You can go to the next slide. And we are not, as I mentioned, we're not sitting by the sidelines this year. We are really going to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support our community. We're a community-led and a community-driven foundation, and that is what our work is. And this is a year when we know we are going to have to show up in all of the ways that we can. Ira Wade mentioned this briefly, but we are going to be launching a responsive fund this year. We've already been fundraising for it. We have been doing responsive funding all the way back beginning in 2017 during the first Trump administration. We launched a rapid response fund to be able to move resources to groups and organizations who were impacted by the realities back then, and we have evolved it during the pandemic and during the past couple of years to make sure that resources are flowing to our communities. So you will see more information about this coming out this year, and how I know we have many groups and organizations on the call today to how you'll be able to apply for funding and how we can move resources to support you in all of the really important work that you're doing. Go ahead to the next slide. Thank you. We are going to be launching something like funding cohorts, which are new. It's new work for Pride Foundation. Think of these as communities of practice, places where groups and organizations can come together to, share strategies, to share resources, to build connections and networking opportunities with one another. We know that one of the opportunities we have is to convene our community together, and that we hear all the time that that is something that folks really need. I think especially right now, being able to be in community with one another and just have an understanding of what's happening across the region is so critical. And so we are going to try to figure out how to do that this year virtually in different capacities. All the work that we do it with input from the organizations and partners that we have. So we're going to be getting feedback on what the most, impactful way of convening people would look like, to make sure that we're offering support that will be beneficial. So we're looking forward to doing this later this year as well. Omni mentioned this just briefly, but we know that it is not only financial resources that people need, that there are other kinds of resources that will help people meet this moment and help people be connected to the things that they need to support their communities. So we're going to be creating resource lists for our grantees and our community partners and our donors and our scholars for the kinds of things that they might need in this moment, whether it's safety and security planning, whether it's how to get involved as a donor and support organizations, whether it's emergency funding opportunities for grantee partners so that we can continue to move more resources to those groups across the region. But we know that this is one thing we can offer, and that many of our grantee partners are already developing these kinds of lists, and so that we can also amplify this this resource out there to make sure that we're sharing the information that we need to best respond to everything that's coming. Ira Wade mentioned this as well with our, what we like to call our support beyond the check. So capacity building, making sure that organizations have access to information. So this could look like things like webinars, like skill shares, like opportunities to connect across state lines so that groups in, for example, Idaho and Montana can share strategies with how they're responding in their home communities. So we'll be developing more resources, more ways of creating an infrastructure of support for the organizations and groups and individuals doing work in our communities. We will do work that the care department that Omni referenced has already begun, but we're going to try to be much more intentional about conducting and being able to share the research that we are doing back with our communities. So we're doing little versions of it, like in this webinar today, where we're trying to, collect information, better understand what folks are seeing and experiencing, so that we can both inform our activities and make sure we're doing all of the things that our communities need from us, but also because there just is not a lot of information out there about how LGBTQ people are being affected generally in this world, but specifically in this moment. So doing things like understanding what displacement is looking like, what it means for people to have to leave their home communities. Can we collect information so we better understand what that looks like for both service providers, but also for the story of our region and the story of our community. And finally, part of what this webinar represents is also our commitment to continuing to increase awareness and share information back with our community. There is so much coming at us. There's so much information, and there's so many things that are developing, and Pride Foundation is not a breaking news organization, right? We're not going to be putting out those news alerts, but we really are committed to distilling and synthesizing what we're hearing locally, what we're hearing regionally, what we're hearing nationally back to you all, so that we can be in conversation about what LGBTQ communities are facing broadly and what LGBTQ plus communities here in the Northwest specifically are facing. So you plan to hear from us more in the coming year, because we're going to really make sure that we are sharing back all the kinds of things that we're learning, so that people have access to what's happening, because we know there's a lot out there and it's hard to know what to trust and to what to believe. So we really want to invite you into this work with us, and invite you into the future that is happening, whether we want it to be happening this way or not. We are certainly in it together, and our stance is to really focus on the actions and the activities that we can take that will improve the realities for our communities here in the Northwest. And now I think we're moving to the Q&A portion. So Jamila, can I turn it back to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, easy enough. We're moving into Q&A. I know that there were about 6 questions that came through in the Q&A section that have already been answered, like in live time. And we have one open one, but I'm going to hand it over to Steve, because there are questions that came in for us through the registration process, as well as the open question we have right now.
That's right. Thanks, Jamila. Yes, we had a question come in just during the session here, Katie, that might be a good one for you to start to answer. It might be one for Ira Wade as well. It's from Meryl Chu, who's a very grateful grantee organization representing one running 2 programs with a Pride Foundation grant, and wants to know, are there any things that grantees can do to help support Pride Foundation in the spirit of reciprocity? And is there anything about the grantee programs you would all wish to hear more about?
I can jump in, and Ira, wait if you have other things to add to it. I mean, first of all, Meryl, I just want to say thank you so much for that, and thank you for, you know, that offer of reciprocity. It means so much, and I think is just really clear what our communities are looking for. But I think one of the things that is most helpful to us is understanding what you and your unique situation, whether in your community or your geographic location, what are you facing that might not be things that we're aware of. I don't have to tell anybody on this call, our landscape across the Northwest is wildly different depending on where you live. And the realities of what you're facing look really different. And so if there are things that are happening that you think are important for us to know about, please share them with us. And also if there are things that you need from us that perhaps you haven't asked before or that we haven't thought to offer, please tell us. We want to really make sure that we have a space where we can be in dialogue and with y'all. So wait, I don't know, is the person, oh, sorry, Jamila,
I
go
want
ahead.
to add something from a community engagement and comms perspective. I know that Pride Foundation doesn't necessarily do reporting, but periodically throughout the year, we ask if we can highlight the work that you're doing. So, when you have time, when you have the capacity, send us like your positive updates and stories and tell us how your programming is going, because it's not just that we want to know, it's really the partners across our community that really want to know what's happening with the work that you're doing, and we just want to be able to be a vessel to share that out and get more support.
And I think I would just add letting us know what's going on with you. And so as we, reach out as programs team, we're like, what's going on? We really just want to know what's going on. Y'all are the ones with, the feet on the pavement. And it's just really helpful to get an update from y'all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I think that that's always helpful for us because it influences our funding. It's definitely going to influence our capacity to be on the check. So, anything you ever want to tell us, if somebody had a baby, sure, tell us. Like, that's the information that we want to know. And then lastly, I think one of the things I would say is we're trying really hard to kind of build out our ecosystem of expertise, but I think a lot of us are expertise in the work that we do, but also the ways in which we live our lives. And so with that being said, as we start building out what's a cohort, like how do we build networking opportunities for folks? I think one of the things that's really important as we move forward is create a space of peer support. There's definitely ways in which some people are doing their work that might absolutely be able to support another grantee in ways that like we hadn't thought of because we're not doing that work. So as we continue trying to build up different types of infrastructure moving forward in this year, you'll see stuff coming from us asking if you're interested in participating in something like that oriented towards peer support. So I would leave it at that.
And I think someone asked a question about how to share these stories. Just listen out. We're going to be sending mechanisms through for how you share these stories throughout the year. They'll likely be a form, or you can always reach out to your program officer.
Great. Thanks, Jamila. Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Ira Wade. Brian Watson has a question that perhaps Omni might be able to address. I agree that data is needed to understand the extent of issues such as relocation. Am I correct in thinking that the priority will be on rendering assistance to rainbow dwellers in need and that data collection will be secondary?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. It sounds like this is an area that you're potentially working in already. So I'd love to invite you to reach out to me so that we can be in thought partnership with each other. My email is omni@pridefoundation.org. And to just address your question directly, our priority is definitely not getting data for the sake of data collection. I used to work as an evaluator for the CDC, so I know all about getting data and nothing happening with it. So I would say that our priority is building power for our people, not just offering assistance, which is about needs, but also helping them be able to embrace their dreams, right? And I think that that's where I would say that we want to obviously support our community members who are moving here, but our lens is also many of our grantee partners are the organizations that are serving these new arrivals to our region, right? And so we know that it's our responsibility to be thinking about this, right? If this is something that y'all are facing, then we need to have a strategy. So for us, it's about getting some initial storytelling and taking it from there. But please feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to share some more resources for direct support too.
Okay. Thank you, Omni. One of the questions that we had from when people registered that might be good for you, Katie, to address, what do you address some of this, I think, too, but what do you foresee as the primary challenge to our work given this administration and the upcoming congressional terms?
This is always a hard one to pick one specific thing. I think that there are going to be many challenges. We talked about them. I think one of the unique challenges for Pride Foundation is to really be able to understand the breadth of what is needed and to figure out how we can resource it to the best of our ability. I mean, one of the challenges, I don't have to tell anybody on this call, is always resources, right? Making sure that folks have all the things that they need to be able to move forward. And I think that that is going to be a very uniquely challenging issue this year, to make sure that the incredible groups and organizations who are doing this critical work have all of the resourcing that they need. You know, we are a small and mighty group of folks and fundraisers who are trying to move more resources to these groups, and we need more funding partners to be in this space with us, more donors supporting these groups and organizations directly. And I think especially during a time when we know that there could be potentially federal and even local cuts to funding, other kinds of cuts, I think it's going to be a really challenging year to make sure that those resources are out there. And I think there's also just a volume issue, right? Like there's going to be so much happening this year, and being able to process it, respond to it, and figure out what is the best way that we can make sure we're staying on top of all of the different things that we know are happening. And so maybe this is also just my plug for everyone to, like, you know, do what you need to take care of yourselves and sustain yourselves for the long haul, because this is a long game that we are in, that we need to make sure we're around for.
Thank you, Katie. Omni, I think this might be one for you. How does Pride Foundation partner with organizations such as Lambda Legal, ACLU, etc.?
Yeah. So we have some formal and informal relationships with different partners doing work, right? So we right now, particularly like specifically with Lambda Legal, we don't have a specific partnership, but we have been in communication with each other around just different emerging topics in our area. What we tend to do is start with where our grantee partners are located, as well as some of our other more immediate stakeholders, and working out from there, right? So we're a community foundation. We have this fellowship program. Our fellows are in, spread out across our region. They'll let us know different advocacy and research needs that are happening. And as a result of that, then we enter into partnerships around specific events. But you know, what this looks like in practice is that I am a part of dozens and dozens of email listservs and lots of Facebook groups. And so, you know, where I would say a lot of the exciting work is often sometimes less in the organization, the bigger organizations, and sometimes more in like the smaller grassroots meetups where people are doing some more of that everyday work. And so that's kind of been where we've been trying to focus some more of our energy. But we're always happy to partner, whether it's with Lambda Legal, Legal Voice, which also works across the Northwest, right? There are really good partners, you know, as well as the ACLU, I particularly work really closely with the ACLU of Idaho and in Boise. who have been doing a lot of actions recently there. So yeah, we have some formal and informal partnerships. Always happy to touch base with anybody, and can always share some more around what those might look like if there's more specific questions.
Thank you, Omni. We have a question I think might be for Ira Wade. Looking at the grantee list for Washington, the vast majority are located on the west side. Is there a plan to expand to the east side historically hit by more conservative organizations? We are also a location that is most culturally diverse with respect to non-white, with the potential for BIPOC impacting programming.
Yeah, I can respond to that. So previously I had mentioned that we look at different priority areas and geographical regions. And so one of the things that we are deeply invested in is looking at what does it mean to do equitable grant making. And so we know that, like, you know, we're all experiencing oppression, but like we're underneath that umbrella of it, but like the mechanisms look a little bit different based on where you are, who you are, all those different things. So we are taking those things into account, and we do fund folks like on the more eastern side. But additionally, we're having continuous conversations with them about what they might be experiencing, how much money they might need. Also, there's that other component around, do you have the infrastructure to sustain and hold these dollars? What does this mean operationally? So we're trying to make sure that they have what they need, not only just in programming, but also in order to operate, to function. And so it's not like a lot of the things that are coming down the pipeline is going to be new and unique for like folks that live in those regions. So what we're doing is making sure that we're surveying that area, talking to those different community members, trying to see if they're working with other people in the area, trying to think about what does it mean to support them building a network, because some of the things that we've heard is like, we would love to all talk to each other and strategize, but we don't have the energy to bring ourselves together. So we're kind of trying to figure out what does that mean when it comes to dollars, but also what that means when it comes to support beyond the check. So these are definitely things that we're thinking about as we move forward this year. And additionally, we have and are trying to build up a strategy to share out that money this year based on the different things that might come our way. So we definitely are looking at things in as proactive as we can, but also looking at what does it mean to fund and support folks in these isolated geographic regions with money and with other forms of support. So it's happening, it's getting there. But again, I know I've repeated that multiple times. We're trying to support people based on things being community driven and not just based on our assumptions. So it's getting there for sure.
Thank you, Ira Wade. And I think that's the time we have for Q&A. I pass it back to Jamila.
Yeah, so we're going to just close out here. I want to thank everyone who stayed on. We have our email addresses here to connect with programs, care, and community engagement. You can take a screenshot if you're on your phone, or I believe our email addresses are available on the website. Thank you all for joining us and staying for our program and listening to how we plan on being responsive in the next year. We plan on sending out a recap of this event, possibly with a link to the video, and even answering a few of the other questions that we weren't able to get to today through the program. So again, thank you. Have the best day and an even better weekend. Let's get into action. Bye. And join us for Seedlings webinar in March, for anyone still here. All right.